Emily Carter hadn't heard from her old college friend, Rachel Thompson, in nearly 2 years. They had been inseparable, once sharing dorm rooms, late-night talks, and dreams about the kind of lives they wanted. But life had taken them down different paths. Rachel had married Daniel, a successful software entrepreneur, and moved into a lakefront home in Seattle. Emily, on the other hand, was living in a small apartment across town, working long hours as a freelance interior designer, trying to make ends meet. Her days had become quiet and routine, filled with work and little else. When Rachel called that Friday morning, Emily almost didn't answer. She wasn't in the mood for small talk, but something told her to pick up. Rachel's voice was warm and cheerful, instantly pulling Emily back to a time when everything had seemed simpler. It's been forever. You have to come over. Daniel and I are hosting a small dinner tomorrow night. Just a few friends. It'll be like old times. Emily hesitated, glancing at her cluttered apartment. She hadn't been to a social gathering in months. I don't know, Rach. I've been swamped with work. Rachel laughed lightly. You always say that. Come on, one evening won't hurt. Besides, I miss you. Something in Rachel's tone softened Emily's defenses. She'd been feeling disconnected for so long, maybe this was what she needed. Okay, she said finally. I'll be there. It's the next evening. Emily spent far too long trying to decide what to wear. She settled on a simple cream blouse and jeans, comfortable but neat, as she drove toward the Thompsons neighborhood. The houses grew larger and more beautiful, each one glowing softly in the early evening light. When she pulled into their driveway, she had to take a breath. The house was stunning modern architecture with warm lighting that spilled through tall glass windows. Rachel opened the door before Emily could knock. You made it, she said, pulling her into a hug. Rachel looked radiant, her blonde hair perfectly styled, her blue dress elegant but effortless. Emily felt a familiar pang of admiration. Inside, the house smelled of roasted herbs and wine. Soft jazz played in the background. Daniel came out of the kitchen smiling. Emily, finally. Rachel's been talking about you all week. Emily smiled shyly. She remembered meeting Daniel once years ago. Back then, he'd seemed serious, reserved. Tonight, he appeared more relaxed, approachable even. The evening was comfortable, surprisingly so. The other guests were friendly, the food was excellent, and laughter filled the air. Emily found herself talking easily again, something she hadn't done in a long time. Rachel caught her smiling once and whispered, "See? I told you you'd enjoy this." As the night went on, people began to leave, saying their goodbyes and thanking Rachel and Daniel for hosting. When the last couple left, Rachel turned to Emily. Stay a little longer. We haven't really caught up. Emily agreed. She didn't want the evening to end. They moved to the living room where Daniel poured fresh coffee. The house was quiet now, the glow of the lamps soft and inviting. Rachel leaned back on the sofa, studying Emily's face. You've been working too hard, haven't you? Emily gave a small shrug. Work keeps me busy. It's just me now, so... She trailed off, realizing how lonely that sounded. Rachel smiled kindly. You always used to talk about designing beautiful spaces. I remember you saying you wanted to create rooms that made people feel something. I still want that, Emily said softly. It's just harder now. Freelancing's unpredictable. Daniel nodded thoughtfully. You should talk to Rachel about her art projects. She's been working on something that might actually interest you. Rachel glanced at Daniel, then back at Emily. Actually, that's what I wanted to talk to you about. Emily tilted her head. About your art. Rachel smiled, but it was a different kind of smile. Careful, thoughtful. Yes, and something bigger. Daniel and I have been thinking about starting a creative foundation. We want to support women with artistic dreams, designers, painters, anyone with talent but no resources. And when we talked about who could help us shape it, we both thought of you. Emily blinked, stunned. Me? Why? Daniel leaned forward, his voice calm but firm. Because you understand what it's like to struggle for something real. You have the heart and the taste to make it work. Emily didn't know what to say. She hadn't expected anything like this. When Rachel had said they wanted to talk about something important, Emily had braced herself for awkwardness, maybe a personal favor or something strange between them. But this was something meaningful. I don't know, Rachel. I've never run anything like that before. Rachel shook her head. You don't have to know everything. You just have to care. You've always been someone who brings warmth wherever you go. The words touched Emily deeply. She hadn't heard anyone say something so kind in a long time. I'd love to help, she said quietly. Rachel beamed. Good. Then it's settled. You'll come by next week and we'll start planning. Daniel smiled approvingly. It's going to be something special. The rest of the evening passed in easy conversation. They talked about plans, ideas, even possible names for the foundation. Emily felt her energy return, like a part of her that had gone quiet was waking up again. When she finally stood to leave, Rachel hugged her tightly. I'm really glad you came tonight, Em. Me too, Emily said honestly. I didn't realize how much I missed this. As she walked to her car, she felt lighter than she had in months. But under that warmth was a small, flickering curiosity about Rachel and Daniel, about what this new project would mean for her, and about the strange feeling that something important had just begun. The following week, Emily returned to the Thompsons' home, this time with a notebook and fresh determination. They spent hours at the dining table, sketching out ideas. Rachel's creativity mixed easily with Daniel's structured, business-minded approach. Emily fit perfectly between them. Balancing both worlds, it was during one of those meetings that Emily noticed something subtle, a glance between Rachel and Daniel. A kind of unspoken understanding that made her wonder if their marriage was as effortless as it seemed. Rachel was charming, always laughing, but sometimes her eyes looked distant. As if she were searching for something else, Emily tried not to think too much about it. She focused on the work, losing herself in plans, color palettes, and design boards. When she'd get tired, Daniel would bring her coffee. And they'd talk about purpose, about what it meant to build something that mattered. You know, Daniel said one evening as they reviewed drafts, you remind me of someone who hasn't given up. Even when life tries to push you down, you just keep creating. Emily smiled faintly. I guess that's all any of us can do. He nodded, his gaze thoughtful. Maybe that's what makes you different. You still believe in meaning. The words stayed with her long after she drove home that night. There was no hidden intent in them, just sincerity. Yet somehow they reached deeper than any compliment she'd received in years. As the days passed, the project became more than just work. It became her reason to wake up. Rachel and Daniel's home started to feel familiar, almost comforting. They talked, shared meals, and laughed like old friends. And though Emily didn't realize it yet, that night she had said yes to Rachel's invitation was the night. Her life quietly began to change, course toward a future she couldn't yet imagine, shaped by choices she hadn't yet made. Emily arrived at the Thompsons' house the following week with a mix of anticipation and nervousness. Her mind was buzzing from the previous evening's conversation, the idea of helping. Rachel and Daniel launch a foundation for creative women had ignited something inside her she hadn't felt in years. Driving through the quiet streets, Emily thought about her own journey, the long nights working on freelance projects, the solitude of her small apartment, and the persistent feeling that her talents weren't reaching as far as they could. She realized, almost with surprise, that this opportunity could be more than just a project hit, could be a way to reclaim a sense of purpose. Upon arriving, Rachel greeted her with an enthusiastic hug. Emily, I'm so glad you came back. I've been looking forward to today. Her energy was infectious, and Emily felt the tension in her shoulders begin to ease. Daniel appeared soon after, carrying a stack of documents and a laptop. He looked relaxed, professional, and approachable all at once. Ready to dive in? He asked, smiling. They settled into the spacious living room, which had been cleared for their planning session. The table was covered with sketches, folders, and reference books. Rachel poured coffee while Daniel set up the laptop to display their initial ideas. Emily's nerves were replaced with excitement as she surveyed the room. She realized she hadn't felt this kind of engagement in a long time. Daniel began outlining the foundation's mission. We want to support women who are just starting out in creative industries. Many have talent but lack resources, guidance, or networking opportunities. Our goal is to provide mentorship, grants, and workshops. His voice carried authority, but it was gentle and encouraging. Rachel nodded beside him, adding, "We want to make it approachable, supportive, and empowering." And we both thought Emily would be the perfect person to help lead this vision. Emily felt her chest tighten. She hadn't expected such trust from them, and it humbled her. "I don't know if I'm qualified to do this," she admitted quietly. "I've worked on design projects, yes. But leading something like this?" Rachel reached over and squeezed her hand. "You have more experience than you realize. You know how it feels to struggle creatively. You understand what it takes to keep going when it's hard. That insight is exactly what this foundation needs." Daniel added thoughtfully, "It's not about knowing everything right now. It's about heart, dedication, and vision. You have all three." Emily nodded, feeling the weight of their confidence in her. She wanted to express her gratitude, but found herself momentarily speechless. The offer was more than professional, it was personal. It was a gesture of trust, of belief in her abilities, and perhaps more subtly, of wanting her presence in their lives. They spent hours going through ideas, brainstorming names for the foundation, drafting a mission statement, and discussing potential programs. Emily found herself energized, her mind racing with possibilities. She was contributing in ways that mattered, offering insights and solutions that Daniel and Rachel eagerly embraced. The collaborative energy in the room was intoxicating. For the first time in a long while, Emily felt like she belonged somewhere. As the evening drew on, Rachel had to leave briefly for a late gallery opening. "Don't stay up too late without me," she teased, though Emily noticed the small, knowing smile she gave Daniel before leaving. Once Rachel was gone, the room seemed quieter, more intimate, but in a comforting way. Daniel and Emily continued to work on the presentation for the foundation, reviewing notes and refining their ideas. At one point, Daniel looked at Emily, a thoughtful expression on his face. "You know, Rachel's right about you. You have a way of seeing things differently. You notice what others might miss, and it changes everything for the better." Emily felt warmth rise in her chest. I just want to help make this work," she said softly. "I want to do something meaningful again." Daniel nodded, his gaze sincere. "And you are. You've already made a difference in a few short hours. More than you probably realize." The air between them carried a subtle, unspoken understanding. There was no romantic tension inappropriately crossing lines. Yet there was a closeness, a human connection built on respect, trust, and shared purpose. Emily realized that working alongside Daniel and Rachel wasn't just about the project T, was about being seen, valued, and reminded of her own potential. Over the next few weeks, Emily became deeply involved in the foundation. She met with local artists, organized planning sessions, and drafted proposals for grants and workshops. Every day brought new challenges, but she faced them with enthusiasm. Daniel often stayed late to help review plans, offering insights and encouragement. Emily found that their conversations extended beyond works. Sometimes they discussed their hopes, past struggles, and the lessons life had taught them. It was engaging, illuminating, and fulfilling in a way that few things in her recent life had been. Rachel noticed the dynamic between Emily and Daniel. She never spoke about it directly, but she offered gentle encouragement, often leaving them to collaborate together. "I trust you two to figure it out," she said once, with a playful smile. "Just don't work each other too hard." Emily laughed, though inside she felt a flutter of awareness about how connected she was becoming to both of them emotionally. One rainy evening, as the city lights reflected off the wet streets outside, Emily and Daniel stayed behind to finalize a presentation. The rain tapping against the windows created a soft rhythm that made the space feel cozy and secluded. They spoke quietly, reviewing every detail, refining every section. At one point, Daniel paused and looked at Emily with a sincerity that made her pause in return. "You know," he said, "I've seen a lot of people come and go in my life. But you, You make people feel like their efforts matter. That's rare." Emily blinked, taken aback. "I don't know if I deserve that." He smiled gently. "You do, and you should know it. Sometimes people who seem to be struggling the most are the ones who touch the world in ways they can't even see." Those words lingered in Emily's mind long after she drove home. There was no romantic implication, but there was something deeply human and validating about them. She felt appreciated in a way that was different from professional recognition. It was personal acknowledgement of her character, resilience, and heart. The following days blurred together with planning, meetings, and brainstorming. Emily found herself eagerly anticipating each visit to the Thompsons' house. She loved the energy, the collaboration, and the quiet sense of purpose. Daniel and Rachel were more than collaborators. They were anchors in a period of her life that had felt untethered. She laughed more, shared more, and felt alive again. Yet, beneath the enthusiasm, there was a delicate awareness that this closeness was unique. It was a bond built on trust, admiration, and shared vision, and Emily understood the importance of keeping it grounded. She valued their friendship deeply and wanted to honor the professional and emotional boundaries they all respected. One evening, as the foundation's first official proposals were completed, Daniel leaned back and said, "We couldn't have done this without you. Emily, you've brought clarity and heart in ways we didn't know we were missing." Emily felt a lump in her throat. "It's been incredible working with you both. I feel alive again, like I'm part of something that matters." He nodded, smiling. "And you are. This foundation has your mark all over it." Driving home that night, Emily felt a profound sense of fulfillment. The initial fear and hesitation she had felt upon receiving Rachel's call had transformed into excitement, purpose, and confidence. The opportunity had become more than a project. It had become a turning point in her life, reconnecting her with joy, creativity, and human connection. She realized that this unexpected offer had opened a door not just for professional growth, but for emotional restoration. Emily was no longer just an observer of life. She was an active participant, shaping her own path and helping others do the same. The experience had reminded her of the strength she possessed and the power of trusting in people who believed in her. As she pulled into her apartment complex that night, Emily reflected on how a simple invitation had turned into an opportunity she never could have anticipated. The nights of planning, laughter, and shared purpose had brought her closer to Rachel and Daniel in ways that were meaningful, enriching, and entirely wholesome. For the first time in a long while, Emily felt that life was opening up before her, full of possibility and promise, and that she was ready to step confidently into it. The launch day of the foundation arrived sooner than Emily expected. The weather was clear, a gentle autumn sun reflecting off Lake Washington, and the Thompsons' home was filled with an air of quiet excitement. Emily had spent weeks preparing, drafting presentations, organizing schedules, and coordinating with volunteers. The culmination of their work was finally here, and she felt both nervous and exhilarated. Driving to the house that morning, she thought about how far she had come in such a short time. From a quiet, solitary life of freelance work to being at the center of something meaningful. She couldn't help but marvel at the unexpected path that had brought her here. Rachel met her at the door, glowing with energy as always. "Emily, you look amazing," she said, pulling her into a hug. "Ready for this?" Emily nodded, feeling a surge of determination. "I think so. I hope everything goes smoothly." Daniel appeared shortly after, carrying the final folders and checking the guest list. He smiled at Emily as she approached. "You're calm. That's good. We've got this because of you." Emily felt a lump rise in her throat. His words were simple but filled with sincerity. She had spent weeks witnessing their partnership, Rachel's creativity, Daniel's careful planning, and feeling herself woven into their shared vision. It was a collaboration that had strengthened her confidence, her sense of purpose, and her trust in human connection. As the first guests arrived, Emily moved gracefully through the room, welcoming artists, donors, and local media. The foundation's launch wasn't flashy yet, didn't need to be. Its warmth and authenticity spoke for themselves. She could see Rachel in the corner, laughing with some local artists, and Daniel overseeing logistics with quiet efficiency. Emily marveled at how seamlessly the three of them worked together, each complementing the other's strengths. During the early moments of the event, Emily found herself reflecting on the journey. She remembered Rachel's initial call, Daniel's encouraging words, and the late nights they had spent refining every detail. It had been more than professional collaboration, it had been personal growth. She felt a sense of pride not just in the foundation but in herself. She had stepped forward when invited, embraced a challenge, and had become an integral part of something that would leave a lasting impact. As the event progressed, Rachel came up to Emily, her eyes bright. "I'm proud of you," she said softly. "You've done more than just help us. You've brought life into this foundation and into our lives, too." Emily tilted her head, touched. "What do you mean?" Rachel smiled gently, a trace of nostalgia in her expression. "Daniel and I. We were so focused on our careers, our own goals. We didn't realize how much we needed someone like you. You've reminded us how important it is to care deeply about people and projects beyond ourselves." Emily felt a warmth spreading through her chest. The feeling of being seen, appreciated, and needed was overwhelming. She realized that the journey had not just been about helping them, it had been about reclaiming her own confidence, her sense of value, and her belief in her abilities. Later in the evening, after most of the guests had left, Daniel approached Emily quietly. "Rachel told me she wants you to stay on as the foundation's director permanently," he said. "She believes in you completely, and so do I. You've become the heart of this project." Emily's eyes widened, a mixture of astonishment and gratitude washing over her. I don't know what to say. This is more than I ever imagined." Daniel smiled warmly. "It's not just about the work. It's about the way you make people feel, how you inspire trust and hope. That's something rare and invaluable. You've brought something back into our lives that we didn't even know we were missing." Emily realized then that this experience had changed her in profound ways. She felt a deep sense of fulfillment, not only because of her professional achievements, but because of the emotional growth she had experienced. She had learned to trust herself again, to embrace opportunities, and to see that kindness, empathy, and dedication could lead to meaningful change. As the evening came to a close, Emily stepped outside to the balcony overlooking the lake. The water reflected the stars, and the quiet was soothing after a day filled with activity. She thought about the weeks leading up to this moment, the uncertainty, the late-night work sessions, the laughter, and the quiet conversations with Rachel and Daniel. Every experience had shaped her, prepared her for this moment, and helped her understand her own strength and resilience. Rachel joined her on the balcony, her voice soft. "You've changed things for us in ways we didn't expect." Emily smiled, feeling a mix of humility and pride. "And you've changed me," she replied. "I didn't realize how much I needed this being part of something bigger, being seen and trusted." Rachel nodded. "Sometimes the people we invite into our lives change us more than we ever anticipate. You were meant to be part of this." Daniel soon joined them, and the three of them stood together, looking out over the lake. It wasn't romantic in a conventional sense. It was the warmth of human connection, respect, and shared purpose. Emily realized that the foundation had not only created opportunities for other women, but had also strengthened the bonds between people who genuinely cared about each other. In the following months, Emily embraced her new role with energy and passion. She coordinated workshops, mentored young artists, and collaborated with Rachel and Daniel on every aspect of the foundation. The impact they made was tangible: artists gaining confidence, securing opportunities, and building networks. Emily's life, once quiet and solitary, was now vibrant and connected. Through it all, the emotional bond she shared with Rachel and Daniel remained steady and wholesome. There were moments of unspoken understanding, subtle gratitude, and mutual admiration, but always within the boundaries of respect. Emily had learned that deep, meaningful connections didn't require romance or intimacy. They required honesty, trust, shared purpose. Emily's evenings often ended with quiet reflection, looking out over the lake or reviewing plans for the next day. She thought about how a simple phone call had set this all in motion, how an unexpected offer had led her to rediscover her own value, and how collaboration and trust had transformed her life. She felt empowered, fulfilled, and deeply connected to people who valued her for who she was. The story of the foundation and Emily's journey became one of growth, friendship, and purpose. She realized that life often presented opportunities in unexpected ways, and that embracing them wholeheartedly could lead to profound transformation. The experience had taught her that courage, trust, and openness could create lasting change, not only for herself but for everyone around her. As Emily looked out at the lake, watching the sunset reflect golden light across the water, she felt a sense of completion and hope. She had chosen herself, embraced her talents, and allowed herself to be part of something meaningful. And in doing so, she had discovered that the most valuable moments in life often came from saying yes. When the world presented an unexpected offer, the foundation thrived. Emily's confidence flourished, and the bond between her, Rachel, and Daniel deepened into a lasting, respectful friendship. Their shared journey became a testament to the power of trust, collaboration, an emotional connection, proof that unexpected opportunities could bring purpose, joy, and profound human connection into lives that once felt quiet and unfulfilled. Emily's story had begun with hesitation, grown through trust, and culminated in fulfillment. She had learned that the right offer at the right time, approached with openness and sincerity, could transform life in ways she never imagined. And as the stars reflected on the lake that night, she knew she had found her place not just in the foundation, but in the hearts of people who valued her for exactly who she was.